You know that feeling when you see someone at the gym in January, properly going for it? New trainers, matching kit, protein shaker the size of a small child, absolutely convinced that this is it. This is the year. This is the version of themselves that is finally going to stick. Yeah, I have been that person. More than once, if I'm honest, standing there at the squat rack like I'd invented exercise. Very inspiring. Gone by February. The thing about fast results is that they feel like proof. Like the universe is finally agreeing with you. Like you have cracked something everyone else was too slow to figure out. And the feeling is genuinely brilliant. Right up until the moment it isn't. Right, so I want to tell you about two people I know. Not famous people, not case studies from a book, just two blokes from my life. Because I think they illustrate something better than any theory I could give you. The first one, I will call him Danny. Danny found out about property investment around 2005, got into it fast, leveraged heavily, flipped a couple of houses, made serious money in about 18 months. I remember him at a barbecue, genuinely relaxed, holding a beer like a man who had sorted it. He talked about systems and timing and how most people just didn't understand how money worked. He wasn't wrong, exactly. He had made the money. The problem was, he had made it in a market that was going one direction, using a method that only worked while it kept going that direction. When the whole thing corrected in 2008, he lost most of it inside a year. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to take him back roughly to where he started, minus several years of stress and one marriage. The second one is a bloke named Keith. Keith is the kind of person who is almost impossible to write about because nothing dramatic happened to him. He started putting money away in his late 20s. Not loads, regular amounts. Index funds, boring pension contributions, a small ISA. He didn't talk about it at barbecues because there was genuinely nothing to say. He just kept doing it. Every month, quietly, for about 25 years. Keith is not rich in a flashy sense, but Keith is properly financially secure in his late 50s, in a way that Danny, who is now hustling harder than ever, simply is not. Danny got fast results. Keith got lasting ones. And the difference was not intelligence, or luck, or even discipline in some heroic sense. It was just time, and the willingness to be boring for long enough that it actually worked. Here is the problem though, and this is where I think a lot of people, including a younger version of me, went wrong. We live inside our own impatience. Not just financially, with our bodies, our careers, our relationships, our habits, everything. We want the graph to go up sharply and immediately, and when it doesn't, we assume the approach isn't working. So we switch. We try something else. We go again with a new plan and a new deadline, and the same burst of energy that will quietly dissolve in about 3 weeks. I genuinely did this with my health for most of my 30s. I would get fed up with how I felt, usually after standing in front of the bathroom mirror at 7:30 on a Tuesday and looking at myself with genuine confusion. And I would decide to completely overhaul everything. New diet, new training plan, no alcohol, early nights, the lot. I would last about 2 weeks. Sometimes 3 if I was feeling particularly grim about myself. And then life would intervene, or I would have a bad day at work, or someone would put a pizza in front of me, and I would fold completely and go back to exactly where I started. The thing is, and this took me far longer to understand than I would like to admit, the 2 weeks wasn't the failure. The abandonment was. Because in those 2 weeks I had actually done fine. I had made progress. Not exciting progress, not visible progress, but genuine progress. And then I threw it away because I couldn't see it yet. Real change doesn't look like anything for quite a long time. You eat well for 2 weeks and you feel slightly better, and you don't look different. You start going for walks in the evening, just 20 minutes, down the road and back, and nothing dramatic happens. You feel a bit better. That's it. There is no fanfare. Nobody notices. The mirror does not clap. Which, it turns out, is exactly what sustainable change looks like when it is happening. Nothing. for ages. And the waiting, the being in the middle of it, the boring stretch where you are doing the right things but can't see them working yet. That is the bit most people quit. Not because they are weak, because nobody told them that the boring middle is actually the whole point. It is not the bit you survive on the way to results. It is the mechanism itself. I remember reading something years ago about how a bamboo plant spends about 4 years doing apparently nothing. You plant it, you water it, you fertilize it, and for 4 years there is basically no visible growth. Then in year 5, it grows 30 meters in 6 weeks. The thing is, it wasn't doing nothing. It was building the root system the whole time. The entire structure that would eventually support something extraordinary was being built underground invisibly, while the surface showed nothing. That is not a metaphor I invented, but I think about it more than I probably should. Now, I want to be honest about something here, because I think it is important, and I don't want to skip past it. Patience, the real kind, is not the same as drifting. It is not telling yourself you'll get to it eventually, and then spending another 6 months doing roughly nothing while calling it playing the long game. That is just delay with better branding. I have done that too, and it is not the same thing at all. Patient action means doing the small thing consistently, even when you can't see it working. It means going for the walk on the evening when you really don't want to. It means putting the money away when you could find 20 decent reasons not to. It means doing the boring version of the right thing, repeatedly, without expecting applause. I now exercise 4 or 5 times a week. Nothing dramatic, 40 minutes usually. I do not have impressive results in the way that 2-week John thought impressive results would look. But I feel better than I have in 15 years. My back doesn't do that thing it was doing at 38. My sleep is better. I don't get the mid-afternoon crash quite so badly. And I have been doing it long enough now that it is just part of what I do. It is not heroic. It is just a thing that happens, like brushing my teeth, which is probably exactly what habits are supposed to feel like when they are actually working. The practical side of it is, genuinely, not complicated. The reason I avoided it for years was that I kept waiting to feel ready. I kept looking for the moment when I would have the energy and the clarity and the motivation all lined up at once, all pointing in the same direction, before I started. That moment, as it turns out, does not come. It is not coming. You do not get a signal. You just start, slightly unprepared, in the middle of a normal Tuesday, and you keep going. Pick the smallest version of the thing, not the impressive version, the version that is almost embarrassingly small. 10 minutes. 1 page. 1 vegetable. Do that, not to see results, just to do it. Then do it again tomorrow. And here is the thing nobody tells you about small actions done consistently. They compound. Slowly and invisibly, and then quite suddenly, you look back over a year and realize that you're in a genuinely different place than you were, not because of one big decision or one dramatic change, but because of several hundred small ones that barely registered at the time. I know this sounds deeply unexciting. It is supposed to. That is almost the point. I think about my boys a lot when I think about this stuff. Not in an abstract way, in a very specific way. I think about my older one sitting at the kitchen table last week, doing his homework, getting frustrated because he wasn't immediately good at something he had only just started. And I watched him push the whole thing away and put his head down on the table in this very particular way he has, like a small, defeated professor. And I wanted to tell him something useful. Not something encouraging in an empty way, something real. What I wanted to say, and mostly failed to say in any helpful way in that moment, was that the frustration he was feeling was not a sign that he couldn't do it. It was just what the beginning of being able to do something actually feels like. And that if he kept going, the hard bit would become the easy bit, and then there would be a new hard bit, and that is the whole thing, forever. And it is actually fine. I want them to understand that fast is not better, that the quick version is almost always borrowed from the future, that the version of yourself you build slowly, carefully, through 1,000 ordinary days of doing the right thing is the version that stays. I want them to avoid the years I spent chasing shortcuts to places I could have walked to, the time I spent waiting to feel ready instead of just going, the comfort I mistook for stability, right up until it turned out to be the slow leak I hadn't noticed yet. Which brings me back to Danny and Keith. Because the truth is, when I was 25, I would have wanted to be Danny. The results, the confidence, the beer at the barbecue, very appealing. And I sort of was Danny in various departments of my own life for longer than I should have been. But I am 45 now, and I watch Keith living his life without the low-level dread that a lot of men our age carry around with them. And I understand something I did not understand then. Keith was never the boring one. Keith was the patient one. And patience, it turns out, is one of the most quietly powerful things a person can have. The graph you build slowly is the one that holds. That is what I want for them. Just that.